Hello, everyone. Welcome to another GEP live session. My name is Priyanka, Senior Marketing Manager at GEP, overlooking the live program along with the Europe region's GTM strategy and ops. Today, we will have a very interesting discussion with an amazing panel about procurement's role in monitoring and reducing Scope 3 emissions. Now, these emissions stem from the assets that are neither controlled nor owned by the organization, which means they can sometimes be very difficult to address. Yet, the global push for net zero is in the foremost for the organization's sustainability and corporate strategy. To discuss further, we have Glenn Gollub and Johan Rastenberger from Stretch to shed some light on the hot topic. Before taking this further, a little about these firms. GEP is the global leader in digital procurement and supply chain transformation. Our unified approach to solutions delivery is like integrating strategy, software, and managed services, which help organizations across the globe to achieve their strategic, operational, as well as financial objectives. PGS support the search for affordable and sustainable energy for all. In collaboration with industry, society, and authorities, PGS advances marine subsurface knowledge for evolving energy needs. They are with GEP strengthening their procurement function. On the other hand, Stretch, an IT consulting company, partners with GEP to share our commitment for delivering outsized improvement in business agility, productivity, and cost savings to ensure that our customers achieve transformative results. Moving to our panelist, Glenn Golub. He is working in Stretch in procurement. His connection to GEP is as a user when implementing the source to contract module. He is engaged as an interim IT sourcing manager for the Norwegian company PGS. Glenn's background is mainly direct procurement for the last 2 decades, undertaking complex projects within the energy sector. The last couple of years, he has got familiar with indirect procurement, and for him, it has been each day learning more about the different SaaS solutions within the domain. Johan Rastenberger has worked for over 24 years within the analytics field and presently leads the business development in analytics for circular business model offerings within the Stretch Group. With a background in academic horticulture and interest in analytics, he has been working in many different roles within business intelligence and analytics to help organizations get insights through their own data. By making his skills and experience available for the second green revolution and global transition to a circular economy, he seeks to help companies in his paradigm shift. Welcome both, and floor is all yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, first of all, thank you, GEP, for hosting this event and inviting Stretch. And I also asked Johan to join because it's a very important field what he works with.
Thank you so
And
much.
and thank you to all who participate, taking the time to listen in. First of all, Johan, very shortly, what are you talking
Yes.
about?
So I'm going to focus on the Scope 3 emissions because they're a little bit challenging, and maybe give you some ideas and the tips and tricks on how to move that discussion further, and how you can in procurement maybe improve your position within the company. But prior to that, you have very important messages regarding digitalization, Glenn. So
Yeah,
you'll start
I will.
the floor.
First of all, before showing any presentations, I will do that. I do believe in opportunities that exist with your suppliers. Supply chain, they are a source of value. I also believe in making less mistakes, although it's nothing wrong in failing when progress is made.
You should fail fast.
Yeah, probably. And maybe we'll do that today as well and learn something. But I will talk some more about how to give added value for all of us who are involved. And I'm not only talking about the procurement professionals. And now I will share my screen.
We're waiting with excitement, Glenn.
Yeah, I know it's important with excitement. Need to get the sound right. So now I think we have it. Let me know when you can see it. It's all good. Can you see my presentation?
You are probably seeing it now, yes.
Yeah. Good, yeah. Just time lag. So, change. I'm talking about the why and the how to sell it internally and how to make the most out of it, hopefully. So do you experience lack of influence to convince the budget holder to invest in procurement software? Procurement is the very tool to develop your organization and to make a better world. Yeah, change, almost always hard, but unavoidable, like tax and death. Sometimes you need to look closer, change the way you see things. Change the way you see things to get another angle, right information and powers. My take on why digitalization is a means to an end. There are opportunities in change, especially how one interact with the risk we are facing. So, for example, what questions would you like the CFO to ask for you to emphasize what is important to build a resilient supply chain and a better working day for you? Think about your customers, what is important for them. And nothing better than to accept, influence what you can change. Running next to the bike. This has very often been my experience working in procurement, at least that feeling. It should not be like that. Get your procurement right and all will fall in place. I truly believe this. The alternative is losing out on the opportunities that are achievable.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you have a question, Johan?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you think that what you're talking about now, is it specifically for the procurement part?
Probably not, but I'll be honest, I would not know. But I know that procurement is having difficulties in selling its services internally.
They're good at buying, but not at selling them.
Yeah, that's what we need to learn. And we're often seen as a bottleneck. So, for example, typically as CFO, whose procurement is reporting to, because we're not bringing value, we're a cost department. And the CFO is an accountant. How good is an accountant in sales? If you generalize, probably accountants are not really good salesmen. So the same would be for procurement. Just because procurement is seen as a cost, not as a value. That's what we have to overcome.
Sounds reasonable.
In my head, it does. So there are some opportunities for why you need to digitalize. As I said, the more important question is to sell the opportunities that come with it. We should sell that efficient procurement can be a key differentiator for a company's success, to get the leverage on competition. If the CEO manage procurement correctly, they can have whatever they need for their overall company strategy. Be that savings, quality, speed, reduced risk, it is possible. I'm not saying that procurement is saving the whole organization. It's just that procurement is in between the internal users and the suppliers. And this is where the magic happens. So if you go into one of these a little bit more into depth, just very general speaking, the main objective of digitalization in procurement are to streamline work processes, automate repetitive work, and boost employee efficiency. Simply said, technologies designed to solve a certain problem. You also need people in this mix. It's not necessarily about replacing people. It's more about having a meaningful procurement role. I believe in people's ability and willingness to create a better world, or at least a better working day. Give them the chance, and your suppliers too, to navigate in a complex world. Digitalization helps to keep focus on what really matters. Software as a service, also called as SaaS, for the procurement is overwhelming. So much has happened the last 3-4 years. There's so much to choose from out there, more than 300 vendors.
It's probably increasing as well.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot rapid change. And the thing is, with these new tools coming now, they're very user friendly. And this must not be forgotten that user friendly drives adoption. And change is driven by simplification. This must never be underestimated. So, the question, like, for example, during COVID, supplier relationships. You could say there are 16 different types of supplier relationships. Will your supplier prioritize you when required? And what type is beneficial to me or you? And what type is beneficial for other cases? And for example, how to approach, what should I say? Approach ones that really matters to your survival. We call it SRM, Supplier Relationship Management, and it's a very good tool to prioritize your time. And change. Ensure effective change management. Start using the new tool. Not much use if the tool is not utilized. And you snooze, you lose. Simple as that. Do not be ignorant in this world. Should I say, just because it's difficult. And risk management. What is risk management? Okay, COVID. This is being done in various ways. Although digitalizing the risk management is a must. Just to have a tool that can give you some, for example, deeper insight to the potential risk with the supplier or its owner. Are there any sanctions on the owner?
But may I interrupt you there and ask exactly what do you mean here with transparency?
Yeah, it's the thing is that what we have learned in procurement is that we need to look ahead to foresee what's going to happen. And lots of the risk tools that we have are looking backwards, not ahead. Such an example could be a company's financial status. That is at best 6 months old. And digitalization can help you to give transparency in complex supply chains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
Of course.
Of course. You're always right, Glenn.
Yeah, in procurement, always. Yeah. Okay. Is that what you really ordered? Look really close at this small picture. You would assume most people know that the football pitch have a goal that is square with 90 degrees angles, and the football pitch is flat. And I truly mean this, do not take anything for granted in your procurement process. So how much have your procurement department really changed over the last 5 years? I mean, the way you work. A lot more will happen in the next 5 years than the previous ones. Just generally speaking, everything has a faster pace to it these days. And digitalize to help. The right tools are often half the job done. I would emphasize that this is maybe even more so true in procurement. You cannot alone control all the risk in an Excel sheet. There are many reasons for this, but if I'm going to highlight is that digitalized approach is a must. The right tools, what should I say? However, how you approach and structure this is hugely important. But no Excel sheets. Very important.
Excel is everywhere. You can't avoid it.
I know, like IKEA. But what is important is that you have the digitalized integration, that you have an ecosystem or like technology platforms that are interconnected. And these systems must be integrated together to make a more complete picture. So it can help the procurement people with guidance to interpret all the complex information out there. Not the less is sell. Everyone is selling something. Like I'm selling something now. Procurement should also sell the value of procurement to ensure you're involved at an early stage. Bring value to your stakeholders. The new tools could be the very enablers you need to bring that value. And then content with status quo, eating from the same buffet every day and choosing the blue pill versus the red pill. Remain in the blissful ignorance. We have always done it this way, the most dangerous words in a business context. If you do not believe me, how to grow some tasty apples? Not that kind of apple. I have an example of this company because everybody knows about this company and it's a successful company. And my claim is that their CEO is a former CPO, and that is the secret to keep pushing their success. I could spend a lot more time on that one, but I will let it go for now and keep a little bit further down. Johan, did you watch the iPhone 14 launch?
I did. It was great.
Yeah.
They know how to make film and launches.
Yeah. Comes out from the space, the planet Earth, and it's all about the environment. Yes. Big time. And here's where I'm having a bit of a problem is consumer electronics and the environment. That is a contradiction, I would say. Nevertheless, Apple in this launch, they emphasized return your old phone when buying a new one. As a buyback model, I do hope. And Apple will also have access to raw materials that are in shortage, such as gold and copper. This is not a novel idea. It's very simplified and it might not really make a big difference in the big picture when it comes to emissions or access to raw materials. But there is an effect, and the most important thing, why should they not offer this service? Change starts with small steps and are often necessary before you can make bigger steps. So, I'm a little bit over my time, so I'll be very simple here, riding the bike.
That's the way you should do it.
Yeah, that's the way you should do it. Then you get happy.
Like you are there.
Yeah, but a very important disclaimer, obviously, to my presentation. It must also be mentioned that you don't throw technology at something and expect it to fix everything. Decide on the right technology and understand how to utilize it effectively. You have to adapt the technology to your processes. Technology doesn't improve processes. Process has to be improved using technology as a tool. And finishing off, it's like wrong KPIs. even the CEO might have the wrong focus, if you ask me. Help and support your CEO to make good decisions for the business and the environment. After all, why is price often the most important part of a purchase for the CEO? Why sales should sell on value to their customers again? That does not make any sense to me in my world.
So right, Glenn.
Yeah. So before I hand over to my colleague, Johan, I will, you tell me when to change slides and so on, okay?
Yes, exactly.
And,
Yes.
But before, what kind of a mobile phone do you have?
Well, I have the Apple one.
You do?
I have the fruit company one.
Yeah, what I could say is that I have Nokia. That's because I trust the Finnish more than Americans when it comes to quality. This has 1 year free screen replacement. It's 1 year old now, never broke, and a 3-year warranty. And you know what is the back? It's not glass. It doesn't break. It's polymer composite. Now listen to me. Lighter and stronger than steel. We have used it for subsea in oil and gas, and that should last for 25 years minimum at the sea bottom in seawater. So here, Johan is half finished.
Exactly. That's the nice connection. Thank you for it. True. I have a Finnish origin, and I'm proud of it. You make me proud of it. Okay, so Glenn, let's go a little bit through on how to monitor and improve your Scope 3 emissions.
Yeah.
First of all, before we dive into Scope 3, we need to separate a little bit what the different scopes are. Scope 1 is the easiest one, and why would it be interesting for you? I'll come back why procurement should be interested in this area as well. So Scope 1 emissions are those that your company directly produce. Those are the ones you would immediately recognize as being a part of your activities, the emissions you have. Scope 2, and if I have in my mind an example, a toothbrush company creating toothbrushes, producing them. Now that would be waste coming directly from the factory. Scope 2 is indirect emissions. Those are those you are in control of, but you are not the source of them. It could be that you are running your toothbrush factory on renewable energy. Then you have less of an Scope 2 impact because you buy renewable energy. You could do that also with raw material. Their procurement really comes in and have an effect on this one, Scope 2. Scope 3 is a tricky one because Scope 3, if you are producing toothbrushes, would be everything around it that you're not involved in. If you think of a toothbrush that you produce with your Scope 1 and 2 emissions, Scope 3 would be the emissions that comes of usage of your toothbrush. Wastewater, toothpaste waste, emissions when consumers burn their toothbrush in the normal waste distribution. It affects both upstream and downstream. So it also affects in the value chain the suppliers part. What do? They use probably logistics in order to collect the raw material that you need. That would also be a part of the Scope 3 emissions. So it's everything that's not in your control. And that can be really frustrating, especially if you need to report Scope 3 emissions. And many companies need to do that now and very much so in the future. So how will that affect you? I hope you have a short understanding of Scope 1, 2, and 3 now, because we're going to dive into Scope 3 a little bit more now. Please change slides, Glenn. Thank you. And another push on the button, please. Exactly. So the interesting part here is that Scope 1 and Scope 2 connects your company. These are emissions that you control, whether it's within your factory or company or outside, but you can affect it. So you can connect here your design team that designs the products your procurement team, which you are maybe a part of, along with the manufacturing and the distribution of your products. So scope 1 and 2 should encourage your cooperation. And this, you as a procurement department, if you take initiatives in this, you might lead that integration, which of course makes your role in the company more important. But we are about to talk about scope 3. So how does this connect with scope 3? And here, Glenn, I'd like you to click again.
Yeah, this is what I'm interested in.
Yeah, this one. I call it Sputnik meets Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Sputnik was the first satellites that the Soviet did launch in the 50s. It looked like that. So scope 3 emissions that you have are somebody else's scope 1 and 2. If you think of the suppliers you have that uses lorries to transport raw material or something to their production facilities in order to produce something for you, that would be their scope 1 and 2 emissions. So they would be part of your scope 3. The same goes in the other direction, that your scope 1 and 2 emissions are, especially if you are a business-to-business company, would be that company's scope 3 emissions. Not all of it, but parts of it. Hence the Pac-Man look. If the supplier is not only supplying to you, of course, but because then you would have the whole cake. So this is an interesting thought, that the scope 3 emissions are hard to measure, but it's somebody else's scope 1 and 2, and they can measure it if they want to. Also, it's a really nice incentive that your scope 1 and 2 is actually an asset you can use. So let's go dive into more practice here then. What does this mean, all of this talk? You might click again, Glenn. Okay, I have toothbrush there as a symbol of my idea world I'm in right now. Upstream the value chain. What do we have there then? Politically, you were mentioning transparency, Glenn, and that's very much so here too. Supplier transparency is important. If you want to know your scope 3 emissions, you need to have suppliers that can provide you with that information, that are willing to do that. And that is usually could be a legal or a more soft blocking thing.
Yeah, could I just add something there, Johan?
Of course.
When you come to legislations, Norway have åpenhetsloven, and you have over Germany has their starting now in January, sort of the same. But it's like, I think just in the States, there were like 10 new legislations the last couple of years. That's more than it was the last 10 years altogether. So, and there will come more.
And that's the pressure from above, or pressure from the market, from the political view of things. But you would still need to work that transparency into your agreements. If you click on another one there, it's also about having this transparency or information collection in your contracts with the suppliers. So ensuring you that you get the information you need from your suppliers.
It's very important.
Very important. And also you can buy information. As I said before, the information your supplier has on scope 1 and 2 is a valuable asset that you could have. And Glenn, since I'm not an expert in procurement, do you have any suggestions what could be bought for? What could the buying be? It doesn't need to be money, I guess.
No, I mean, it can be very different, but very often just ask. And if you do have a good relationship with your suppliers, they're probably more than willing to provide you with the details you need. Sometimes you might need to guide them, because then again, they need their sub-suppliers' information. And this is where all the risk really lies.
The chain of events, the chain of suppliers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. okay, let's go into the technological part. This blue box means we're going a little bit nerdy now. So you get some nice wordings here, and if you don't recognize them, just say them loud and see if anyone reacts. Blockchain technology, you probably heard about it because we have that in the cryptocurrency, which is apparently a scandal right now. But it's used in several instances, and you use that for carrying information regarding the products untouched, so you can trace where they come from, trace what's happened to them in the whole line of events. A little bit of that what Glenn was talking about, from supplier to supplier. It's a technology that is becoming more and more viable and usable in different ways, and not only this cryptocurrency way. That is one crucial technology that we should be looking for. Go for the next one. So supplier delta lakes, that is a technology emerging again within my field, analytics field. Delta lakes are a way of distributing information cheaply. So your suppliers could supply you with quite raw information about their emissions, for example, and other aspects, but do that in an efficient way that doesn't need a huge technological shift or so. That's an interesting technology to share information to others. Please go for the next one. Yeah,
that's true. And I guess, at least for myself, I think lots of procurement people we haven't had the pleasure of really learning about supplier delta lakes.
No, most people hasn't. And sometimes these technologies are hidden behind a facade like a product or something else. But you should take interest into it and ask into these things, because they will emerge and be an important part of the future procurement working. Now, digitalization, that was a hard word. Digitalization is important, and you use systems for that, some kind of system support. Like Glenn said, the system doesn't solve everything, but it supports you. And integration, if you have everything digitalized, you can actually integrate the system. So you share information between the suppliers and yourself in a smoother, automatic fashion. Much more if you have any system to integrate. If you don't have it, you can't do it. Let's go for the next one. So, exactly. So you have the possibility to also more efficiently collect information, and you can guide your suppliers in how they can collect their information. Of course, you need some competencies that it's not native to you, but you can work with that. First of all, I'd say that there are also some interesting technologies regarding, it's called crawling engines. And crawling engines is more of searching the unstructured data you have or your suppliers has. It could be Word documents, it could be emails, it could be spreadsheets or whatever you have, digital documents laying around. And those are really, really important sometimes. And there are some very intelligent engines that can extract the necessary information there. If we look downstream, we have a business models. You would want to collect information from the products you release to the market. That means that you need to think of your business model. Does it support any feedback loops? Does it support anything that gives you information back again when you have released your products? You might not have that, and then you need to review the whole business model you have. Okay, let's see the next one. Okay, information collection in contracts is as important downstreams as upstreams. And if you're in charge of the whole infrastructure here, you could also be interested in this one, because when you sell products, you should make sure that it's okay for you to collect the necessary information for your Scope 3 emissions. Even if it's not directly related to procurement, it's related to the very fact that you have a whole cycle of emissions to count for. And I think the last one there is sell information. As I mentioned earlier, your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions are valuable assets. You can sell them. You can make sure that they are, especially if you are selling to a business-to-business scenario, the other ones would see value in what you have there. And that means that your procurement data is valuable for someone else because we're all in a chain, or actually in a cycle, not even a chain. Okay, let's go ahead with the next one. This is a repeat because, as I said, you're a part of a chain here. So, of course, we can use the same technologies that go upstreams as downstream. Blockchain technology will help you eventually in some form to collect and also distribute information further down the line. Please go for the next one. The same for Delta Lakes. You can be a master of sharing information with your clients. You can take charge here. If you do that, you'll be in charge of the infrastructure. You're not only in charge of your little part, but your influence will be much greater than that. Now, here's a chance for you. You can create those ways of sharing data efficiently without having a huge budget for it. There are supporting technologies for that. Please add the next point. Great. So what you need to do is also think, how can you collect information back again? And there are several digital tools today to create services. Toothbrushes could have an app that when you're using the app, you report back what happens with the toothbrush. And on the other hand, they will get something in reward, points or whatever. You'll figure that out. Go for I think the final one, maybe. The next final one. End of life data collection. What happens with your products when they are being thrown away? They might become a resource for you back again. You might be able to buy back those products. So you really make a circle of it, and that would be great. And you need, of course, information about what happens with them, because that is scope 3 emissions. Finally, life cycle assessments of your products is also important here. How is your products being used? And that affects procurement very much, because that is about longevity of the products and how reusable they are when they're finished. So you should definitely have a focus on that in order to survive for the future requirements. Great. Okay. I think I've stuffed enough for you. Let's end the presentation and go to the next phase.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
I will stop sharing my screen.
So great, and we have some questions.
Let's see.
Great, you've been active here, so we see a whole list of questions here. Can you see them, Glenn?
Yeah, where should we start?
So we have one here. We are that's from Rashid Rihan Siddiqui. We are in the public procurement space. What can we do to digitalize the procurement process? Where would one start, Glenn?
Yeah, where one start?
You said something about the right tools, so you would need probably to scan the market. You said 300 suppliers. You would need to start somewhere.
That's a good point, Rick. I mean, there are numerous sources for try to get an overview, and some are really complex and will take a lot of time. Personally, I like the one that is called the Procurement Software Site, which has no cost and it's easy to find, and it lists all the vendors from small to large ones.
So that's a great tip.
Yeah, I think that would be a good start.
And I guess also, if you want to digitalize a procurement process, you would also need to identify the process. How does it look like? What is your process? How compatible is it with the tools? Then that could also be an interesting thing to do.
Yeah, I think maybe it's. Would you like to have the tool next month, or do you want to wait a year? You can't necessarily have everything you want in life, and that goes also for work life. So you
True.
probably need to look into your processes and prioritize which ones are most important to get rid of, sort of. And
Yeah.
then, yeah.
We have maybe a question. I'm a little bit unsure of that one. Let's see if I find a question that is it supplier? It's Paulina Skowronska that asks, is it supplier responsibility to share the carbon dioxide emissions officially to clients? Now, this is an interesting topic because who's responsible for what? I mean, we're all responsible for our value, the value chain we are in, or the circle we are in. So I think each company has a responsibility to be able to share this information. You must first know it. That's the basic stuff. If you don't know your carbon footprint, then you're really lost. Now, get a grip of that one first. What is your emissions today? And then you can find out how can you share them. You can do that freely, of course, free of charge, being a good company, lead by example. But you could also find ways to, as I said, you can find ways to maybe tie your clients closer to you, so they will choose you instead of others. Because if you supply them with information they need, they would very much more want to make business with you. And then maybe price isn't that relevant. So you can use it as an advantage, serving your clients in a way that maybe they not even expect, and hence improve that relationship.
That's true. Yeah.
So I think that's the important message. Use that. Oh gosh, we got a nice one here also from Paulina. I love that one. How can you ensure you have the right tools in your organization? Now, Glenn, you did put right tools in the slides there, so you're responsible to answer that one.
Yeah, it's true. I heard this example on the podcast. It's and that was quite well explained. Many years back, you had maybe 3 different pasta sauces. Yeah. So now you maybe have 20. So it's more difficult to choose.
Yeah.
And
they're all good.
And they may be all good. And but I guess that's why we have a job, I guess. And it's really difficult. But you need to make sort of a roadmap of what technology is out there. You need to sort of plan ahead. What are the needs I'm going to cover? But you also need to not only think about procurement, you need to talk to your stakeholders. This is the thing that make it as simple as possible to do a purchase when it is possible. Yeah? Take away friction. This is, as I had one of my slides, that the technology tools, the main thing for them is to take away friction. And that is specifically between your internal stakeholders and your suppliers. So that's where I would have started.
There is also one other aspect of this, and even if I don't always work with system implementations, it always comes to me, and in some way, because I'm part of something bigger, and that is that you as a procurement person, maybe doing the purchase of a system, you need to have imagination. You need to understand the end user situation where they are in. If you are going to introduce a procurement system to support your procurement processes, you must evaluate the systems based on the real people you have to work with. What is their threshold? What can they do? Is this in practice easing their life or making it more difficult? I've seen so many errors where you don't have that. You just have a specification and you go through that and you forget the human factor.
Yeah, and that's where the user friendliness comes in as the important thing to make sure it's being adapted.
And actually, there's one question I can't answer, but I'd like to highlight it anyway. Yeah. And that's it. Which blockchain is best for procurement traceability? And that is because blockchain in itself it's not limited, but it needs to be packed in something user friendliness, because it is kind of a distributed general ledger. That's the basis of the technology. What I believe will happen, if it's not already happened, is that that software platforms or software services will include this technology in their way of tracing information. I believe that many companies today at least know one example where the company has itself developed a platform for it using blockchain technology, but that requires an investment. If you are a big global company, you could do that. You could create it yourself. But otherwise, you would need to look at the software vendors like Glenn suggested here. But then you can ask into, okay, do you use blockchain technology, or how do you trace the information? So you can use this one as upping the level a little bit when you communicate with the software vendors, because they will always say they can solve everything. I know I do that, so probably they do it as well. Okay. So we have one here. By using digital solutions for measuring Scope 3 emissions, what other benefits could that bring? Well, here's an interesting part, and I think it relates very much to what you were talking about, Glenn, about the arguments on why to digitalize, how to communicate with the CEO, CFO, CIO. That's not procurement. And that is that if you solve the infrastructure of information sharing with suppliers and clients, you're in charge. You're the one making up the agenda, which is a strong thing. And you can start sharing other things there as well. Emissions is just one aspect of it all, but you could probably share much, much more. And maybe even more valuable information, because we are all living on information and we need insights and information, and you can make money out of it. So I think if you take initiatives in this, you will both make procurement more important in your company, but you would also benefit from other information you can transfer. Don't you agree, Glenn?
Yeah, I'm nodding. I see also another question here that I think is very important to learn more about from procurement perspective. Even though you went quite in details, it sounds a bit difficult to get measuring Scope 3. Where would I begin coming from a procurement perspective? Like really?
Yeah, and you would probably start with a dialogue with the suppliers to see what can you get from them.
Yeah, and I think maybe also to get into the contracts.
Yeah.
So this is where I feel like takeaway friction is whatever you have in your contract that you would like to have measured. Measure the things that are important, that you will actually check upon. Don't have the suppliers measuring things you're not using, because that's waste of time.
Yeah, because they might even charge you for measuring. If they're smart, they charge you, and then you would want to focus on what's important.
It's true.
So,
yeah, here's one question. I think that was a little bit similar to the one I answered in the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe I answered the first question a bit wrong. But yeah. Yeah, remove friction. Please explain more. I mean, it's working in procurement for quite some time is, I feel like, for example, the engineers that I worked a lot with, they feel like, why do we need procurement? You know, it's a friction between the two departments, and you want to remove that friction, make it flow, make work flow much better, and this is where digitalization can help you.
Can I ask you, Glenn, regarding to this? Sometimes people, as you mentioned, see a tool as the ultimate solution to everything, like a hallelujah moment. And both you and I know that's not the case. But when you start talking about digitalization, you also start to bring up other subjects to the agenda, like what processes do we have? Are they aligned? Don't you think that there is an effect when you digitalize? The tool might not always be the answer, but the process is.
Yeah, I agree, and I think many internal stakeholders, they do not really know how to do a purchase because it's not been really properly communicated. This is very simplified, but that has been claimed. So yeah, and then if you have processes, then it's easy to find out what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
I actually got a very good question from Aman Suman, which I can't answer now, but I will dive into it for sure. Watch out for an announcement. I will definitely go into depth with that. With if UNSPC's code lowest level and vendor code can be utilized to map the carbon emissions along with the spend analysis. That's a good one. And of course, spend analysis is important because you would want a positive business case out of everything. That's how it works. We need to combine the measuring of emissions and understanding our own emissions to how costly it is to spend these, to have these emissions. And as you said, Glenn, there will be a future market that will much more tweak and press all those companies that cannot reach the goals to actually do something, making it more expensive along the way to produce anything if you are producing it with huge emissions, or if you actually have a huge footprint after your products have been produced. You won't escape that in the near future. So that's a very good thing, because I need to think you need to combine things. You need to combine both the financial view of things along with emissions.
Yeah, and I guess as a procurement, you sort of need to have a source of truth that everybody agrees upon.
Now that's a tricky one.
Yeah, that is very tricky, and yeah, we will learn a lot more the next coming years, because the way I see it, the politicians, they have failed when it comes to saving the planet, and all the emissions, they come from manufacturing, purchasing. Yeah. So it makes sense that you need to put the responsibility with the companies that are actually manufacturing and purchasing services and products, and how this will be handled. Yeah, the world is big, and you might.
The world is big, and there's so much to do for us and for you out there. There's one final question. Since product life cycles are becoming shorter, how can digitalization of supply chain make it more responsive? What are the KPIs? Well, responsive means, of course, that you respond to something. You can see information as the nerve system of your company. And if you have your nerve system connected to suppliers and vendors, then you are much more agile, much more aware of what is happening. And that also includes the life cycle of products. You need to react faster, much faster than before. The exact KPIs, I wouldn't want to be expert on here, but digitalization makes it possible for you to keep up with the pace. Otherwise, you won't. Okay.
You have too many
great.
suppliers. You need a tool that can subtract the information and highlight which ones to keep an eye on.
So we are ending our time here for the stage time we have, you and I, Glenn, which are so grateful. And Priyanka, thank you for having us. We're so happy.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. I mean, it was a very informative session. I mean, I learned a lot about Scope 3 and digitization, of course. And there are so many takeaways, but for me, the two most important ones are one, what Glenn said, right? Decide on the right technology. I mean, there are so many tools out there. It can be a mix of tools. It can be just one. It depends upon your target, your scope of work, and then you decide upon how to better your processes using that technology, not the other way around. Because more often than not, what we do is we mistake the technology is going to be a hallelujah moment for us and it's going to resolve all of it. So it's not going to do that. So that was one. And the second was from you, Johan. I mean, we need transparency in contracts from suppliers. That itself arranges the whole process of the scope 3 restrictions, or what we need to do, what we need to achieve from those. So those are the two most important for me, at least. You said something, Johan, Sputnik meets something, and I forgot that phrase altogether.
The Sputnik.
The Sputnik.
Yeah,
you said something.
About the picture I had was looking like the first Russian satellite in the 50s.
Yeah.
So
it meets something, right?
Exactly.
So that was also very interesting for me. And we do have more questions actually coming till now, as I can see on the chat, but due to paucity of time, we cannot do that. Let's do another session on Scope 3 and digitization. I think our audience have not had enough, but
great.
there would be an interesting one. Yeah. For the rest of you, if you have more questions, reach out to me or Glenn and Johan directly for those, and they would be more than happy to answer them. Till the next time, bye everybody, and take care of the environment.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.